Hi, everyone. Welcome to Transitions on Hunters Bay Radio. Today we're broadcasting from our satellite studio in Bracebridge. I'm Anne Wagner, your host, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Ray Cumber. Welcome, Ray.
Hi. How you doing?
Great, thanks. Thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome.
So, Ray, I just recently saw your work at the gala that Muskoka Parry Sound Community Mental Health Association had on, and you had a beautiful carving of a giant eagle carrying a fish. And I was quite impressed with it. And so Suzanne McEachran was good enough to introduce us. And I wanted to ask you, what made you decide to donate such a fabulous piece of work to the gala?
Well, it's an unusual piece, for one thing. Basically, I got the idea from, a lot of taxidermy were in the Muskokas, and even my dad had a nice big bass stuffed. But originally I carved the eagle's head itself, and when I looked at it, it almost gave me the feeling like I'd shot a eagle and stuffed him and put his head on the wall. So I thought I'm going to change it a little bit, and I added the fish with the talons carved right into the fish. So it gave you the impression that he might actually be coming right through the wall, or, just kind of just a different perspective about, how excited we get about catching one single fish, and this guy basically has to catch one every day if he wants to survive. So it's, there's so many different ways of, you can't have one without the other as well, because of, the fish and the eagle survive together, right? So it's the whole theme in, even in the Indians look at that whole prospect of the fish takes care of the eagle, and one looks after the other. So it's that's kind of my idea along that way, anyway. So it's
So is that how your ideas about the art you create come to you? You think about the way the world works?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, we carve what we love, or we paint what we love, or we photograph what we love. And if you want to, these days with the environment and everything too, there's something to be said about, the whole process. It's, we don't look at we like to go fishing and everything, and a lot of people catch and release, and there's a lot of, there's a lot more talk about the environment in general too. So, I've a few of my sculptures all seem to run along the same lines, and the fish and the eagle always end up together. So I think the Indians kind of agree, and trying to be in tune with your environment is really the only way you can. There's no way of controlling the environment. You just have to be in tune with it. So anyway, that's
right.
Anyway, that's. There's a lot of ways you can. There's a lot of. That's the idea of any kind of sculpture that you want people to. Well, it's going to provoke a lot of, questions, ideas. Obviously, just by looking at it. So.
Absolutely, can start conversations.
Sure.
And so you're a gifted carver. Is that primarily the medium in which you work?
Well, I've started with a box of crayons when I was 5, just if you want to do something, if you're creative, we all have, we all know somebody, that's what you do, right? You pick up a crayon, you pick up a pencil or whatever, the doodles on your books in high school or in school, or the distractions or whatever. They're all things that you do naturally. So, probably one of the worst things you can do is not react to a need to be creative, because otherwise you go down a different road, right? So, if you're, there's all, creativity can produce all kinds of different things, not necessarily just a aesthetic thing, but more of a progressive or an ideal for a way of living. So I mean, feeding the creativity is just as important as anything else. What direction you go with it is, everybody is an individual, right? So.
And so you've certainly harnessed your creativity in your work.
Well, that's what you try and do, right? That's what you want to do. If you think about what you're going to do first, there's a lot of times when we want to splash paint on a canvas, but sometimes you have to spend time and think about what ideas you're trying to get across, right? So.
And so did you get professionally trained in carving?
Well, my dad's been carving since he was a young man.
Okay.
When he was in Scouts and Cubs, and when my grandmother would take him to the reserve, because my grandmother has Inuit, or I don't know how you would say it. I mean, she's a native Indian, or was. But the records and everything for the hall, when my dad went to find the Hall of Records or whatever, they had a fire back in the 50s or 40s or whatever. And, just because of the way they keep records 100 years ago, I mean, it's not really surprising that her birth certificates or whatever have disappeared. So that's not really an issue. But my dad learned how to carve on the reserve, watching them carve totem poles.
Oh, interesting.
So he has been carving ducks and totem poles and boats, whatever his interest would lie. But he worked at Ford for 37 years as well and raised 5 kids. So, I mean, his was more of a stress relief, I think, than...
Okay.
I've, despite the roads I've walked down or whatever, I've never had to... raise a family. So my ability to stretch my gift from that I've got, because both my parents were artists, so I seem to have inherited most of it, and have been trying to do the best I can with what I got, right? So, and I think as we get older, we become more confident with our abilities, and even our creative abilities, right? So if you exercise that creative muscle, then it's gonna work for you well, right? And I have, without a doubt, have a good creative instinct, so that's part of it, right? So
this is more than just a hobby for you, is it?
Yeah, because... like I said, I mean, since I picked up a box of crayons or whatever, there's always been a need to draw birds or whatever. Birds have always been the primary. My favorite have always been birds. So I mean, I love animals, all animals, but birds fly. I mean, hey, can you fly? No, I don't think so. So I mean, and then But, it's, we like beautiful things, right? So,
yes.
Nature is full of beautiful creatures, so that's for sure. And my latest sculpture I'm trying to finish, which I actually started about 3 years ago, is called Mother Nature, and it's basically, she has about a dozen different animals surrounding her. And it's almost like an Anglo-Saxon version of a totem pole.
Oh, interesting.
But she has, her hair is like an apple tree, and with the animals and different creatures and different fruits, and it's actually a myriad of nature. I mean, it's...
Oh, so a lot of different elements are included.
Oh, it's everything that's... It's like almost a medieval fable. If there was a story about Mother Nature, and when we were little kids, I mean, fables and books were pretty big stuff, right? 40, 50 years ago, right? So even now, I know little kids enjoy books. If one of the attractions, I think, to a small child would be those wonderful pictures in child books, right? And as you're reading, you're going to show them the different pictures in the books, right? So
yes.
The fables about Mother Nature and whatever, Peter Rabbit, or the different animals and the characters, whatever. So, they come to life when you see those pictures. Right. They have value because when little children they're 5 or 6 or whatever, and they're just starting to read and they're just starting to absorb these creative things like the wonderful pictures in a storybook. That takes them down a road, right?
Absolutely.
So the possibilities, too. So possibilities.
Well, at this point, I think we should just take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with more chat with Ray Cumber. Welcome back to Transitions. I'm Anne Wagner, your host, and we're back with Ray Cumber. And so, Ray, I was wondering if you could tell me, is your art that you do important to your well-being?
Absolutely. I think my mental health would be in jeopardy considerably more if I wasn't, exercising my creative self. Part of the reason that I'm even here at the moment is because I had been involved with the Muskoka Mental Health years ago for insomnia, basically, and all the side effects that go along with it. So my donation to the Mental Health Association was more or less thanking them, and also to help to get people to realize that even normal people can be affected by mental health simply by the lack of sleep, or we all know how stressful life can be. So mental health can affect anybody. So that stigma, or even just by saying mental health, makes you want to turn the channel or whatever and tell somebody is affected by it. So anyway, yes, art and creative outlets for anybody, especially when you're a teenager or a child. Mental health for teenagers can be especially damaging and do need to be addressed, regardless of whether or not they want to deal with the adults who know nothing. But sometimes we know something. If we remember what it was like to be a teenager, then maybe we can remember what it's like to be stressed out about life in general, and how these gigantic problems that seem to loom over us are not really as big as they might seem. So if you talk to somebody about that, it can help, just talking to somebody. So even that aspect, the simplest thing of just letting out all your things that are bothering you can help, can take the weight off your shoulders. So just having somebody to talk to can always help. So
that must have been a really big step when you decided that you're going to donate your eagle,
mm-hmm.
and you're willing to talk about it.
Well, you know what? The world's changing, right? So mental health and the way people look at it, and the way people look at bullying, or even abortion, or religion, or homosexuality. These are all things that people want to address, and there's a lot of people that don't want to address them, but they are things that are in front of us. And even, we have Gamblers Anonymous, Drugs Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. There's all kinds of Eaters Anonymous, people who are overweight. And one common factor there is one day at a time, and is, getting through life one day at a time you can use that theme in almost every aspect of life. I mean, it's whether, whatever your problems might be. We all have our crosses to bear, but sometimes just talking about your problems can, again, I've already said that once, but sometimes saying it twice doesn't hurt. So talk about your problems, and sometimes you feel better.
So was it deliberate that you send such a powerful message with your art?
Well, you want me to, I could have donated some trees, like a painting of some trees or something.
Because you paint as well.
Well, I do, but I mean, my point is, you don't go out into the bush and wear camouflage to get people's attention, right? You can yell from there, and I'm way over here. If you want to get somebody's attention, then you have to get some. You give them something to give them that. That's what people want. Something that's going to make them stop and look and think. Right. So
absolutely.
That's what art is. Most artists are trying to express themselves. So if you're expressing yourself, then you're trying to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, listen, did you ever think about this before?
And it seems like you very consciously use your art as a way of de-stressing and getting back to nature.
Well, again, I'm in my 50s, so I've been an artist for a long time, so I've been thinking for a long time about what I'm trying to say, or what idea I'm trying to get across. So that's the beauty of where I am right now. There's nothing wrong with being 50, I'll tell you. I kind of like being 50 because you don't have to worry about all the things you worry about when you're young. You can get on with your life. So what I remember the most is the one thing is the nice thing about being 50 is you're still young enough to know what you want and old enough to know how to get it, right? So it's, I'm in a good place right now. But again, the mental health, and I think the real concern, I think, is for younger people who are trying to get down that road, that hard road between being a kid and being an adult. And that, not that being an adult is any easier, but it sure, like I said, things can look so much bigger when you're small.
Good point. Absolutely.
So this is all about kids. If you can, trying to help them out early. And if they find that they have a hobby or something they like to do to create, to be creative, that could be the thing that helps them from falling into a hole or going down a road that they don't necessarily want to go down. So, don't be afraid to be creative. Don't be afraid to express yourself. So,
yes.
You know what? At the end of the day, it's just you, right? You got to deal with yourself, be honest with yourself, be creative for yourself. And sometimes when you are creative, you're going to feel better too. So someone's going to say, oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
I think that's a really positive message, because I remember thinking as a teenager, so much of my energy was going into being like everyone else and fitting in. Mm-hmm. And you sort of forget to be yourself, that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are interested in your artwork, we've talked about the fact that we'll post some pictures on our Facebook page so people can look at some of your work. Do you also show your work publicly?
I'm just in a stage right now where I'm trying to work things out. I've been asked if I was a professional artist or not, and the fact of the matter is I don't think I've ever been a professional artist, because that constitutes a profession, and a profession constitutes that you're making a living. And I've never made a living from being an artist, so I can honestly say I'm not a professional. I'm an obsessional artist. I am born and raised and will probably die being an artist. Because, I mean, I don't really know any other way to look at things.
Okay. So maybe we'll put a plug in for next year's fundraiser. If you're going to donate another piece, that might be a way for people to see your work.
Well, I don't see a problem there. You know.
Okay. Well, I think we're out of time for this week, but I'd like to thank you, Ray, for coming and talking to us and
well,
sharing
thank you
your
very
insight.
much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. So that's it for this week on Transitions. We'll be back again next week.